Okay, so this is the Leadership Tree Leadership Cafe. And the intention here is to create a space to explore ourselves and the challenges that we have for leadership through the basics of the leadership tree. So the leadership tree is my approach to leadership, starting with you. And this is why I've created this space. This space is about exploring your challenges, your barriers, your questions, the things that are coming up for you in your life, not your life as a leader, but in your life, and how that plays out and shows up in how you lead your life, lead your business, lead as a leader. So let's explore that and work through that. There we go. It's gone. And at the starting point of this, and the starting point for me in developing the leadership tree was spending time with my grandchildren and realizing how much there is to see when we slow down, how much there is to notice when we're not focused on the direction we're traveling, but we're focused on the journey itself. I could have walked past this muddy puddle, and yet my granddaughter spent 20 minutes playing in the mud and exploring it and seeing what she could find out with the stick. She spotted all the creatures that were there and nearby, and she looked at them with awe and wonder. And I realized that actually it's when we slow down that inspiration comes. It's when we are alert to our surroundings and we can pick up all the signals around us. And when we are listening, truly listening to what people are saying and being curious, rather than having the answer or knowing what the solution is, rather than being focused entirely on the objective that we have, we look at it from the now and we explore it from, okay, how is this showing up? For allowing our emotions to come through as not blocking them, not denying them, but noticing that they're there and allowing them to flow. Each emotional signal is 90 seconds long. If we allow it to flow and don't feed it our thoughts, it goes. And this is what a toddler does. They move from one emotion to another. They notice the awe and wonder around them. They're curious. They ask questions. They don't have the objective of time in mind. They release control. And when we come from that place, we're an incredible leader for ourselves and for others. And when we bring that from a position of love and belief in the humanity of everyone around us, then what we create is amazing. So from this comes the leadership tree. And again, this was an inspiration from staring at nature. I remember when the moment of inspiration came, I was actually looking out of the kitchen window on a stormy day, watching the rope swing we have on a tree swing backwards and forwards as the wind caught the branches of the trees and they moved with the wind. And I realized that a tree is an incredible system or group of systems. It weathers the storms, it moves with the winds. It has systems to manage the seasons, and it produces a bountiful harvest. And without each of those working together in harmony, and without all of those systems flowing and functioning fully, the tree fails to thrive. And it's systems. We talk about system leadership, and it's systems that control our lives, our habits, are just systems. If they're good habits, they're good systems. If we think they're bad habits, they're bad systems. But they're just systems. We live through systems. There are simple ones. You know, we may have a system that says we get up and we have a shower and we brush our teeth. And we do that without thinking. It just happens. And then we have systems that get in the way. We have systems that say, it's really hard for me to exercise. It's really hard for me to lose weight. It's really hard for me. It's still a system. We still believe it. It's really hard for me to be happy. It's a system. It's a system of thinking. And so, just as with a tree, if the system is sabotaged by nature and its coping mechanisms don't work, then the tree fails to thrive. The same with us. Our systems can help us thrive. Our systems can sabotage our leadership of self and our leadership of others. So when a tree has its systems in harmony, it's resilient, it's consistent, it's responsive, it's connected, it's communicative, it's present, it's aware of its environment, it's responsive to its environment. They've recently discovered that trees in a forest are connected to each other by a mycelium network, fungal network, and they communicate. So if one tree is under attack, it warns all the others. If one tree is short of water, it seeks water from the others. It's an incredible system. And it communicates its needs, which is great. A tree is anchored to the ground through its roots. It's grounded. It's flexible. It responds to its surroundings. And that's what great leadership is. Great leadership of us, great leadership of others. And so from this came the leadership tree. From this metaphor, I thought, I can build a system. And it's kind of a coaching system. We explore your foundations, your roots, what keeps you grounded, what keeps you connected, what helps you stay resilient. Then we look at the actions that flow from that, the daily systems that you take, the things that you do, and how they flow through the day. And as they feed into effective systems that grow incredibly well, what happens is they become your leaves. A leaf is an incredible thing. A tree, for it to grow more leaves, needs leaves. And so what happens with a leaf is the system by which the tree generates more leaves, more energy, more growth, more food, more growth. It's an incredible system, and we can build our own systems like that so that they become self-perpetuating, and it's a flow. So that's the leaves. That's the growth. And from the growth, and it's continuous, becomes the harvest, the fruits that we wish to bear. And this is where we can sometimes find ourselves out of alignment, because the systems that we have aren't necessarily aligned with the outcomes that we want. They might get in the way, but we don't know they exist. And so part of this program is to highlight where there's a disconnect in how we go about life and the things that we want. And the thing about this is we don't know they exist. So it's really hard to change something that you don't know is there. It's just getting in the way all of the time, but you can't see it. So when we move through the leadership tree, it's important to have in mind the harvest that we want. You don't grow an apple tree from an orange tree seed. And that's really important to understand. So are all your systems aligned to the outcomes you desire? So I've got some questions for you. I wonder how compassionate your self-talk is. Tracy, perhaps you could explore that with me. Are you kind to yourself? Would you say the things to yourself that you to others that you say to yourself?
I have had to work very hard on this, very hard. In the last, I would say, year or so, I've really had to turn around the way I talk to myself. And there was a particular incident, actually, that I knew I had begun to be more compassionate with myself, where I had made a mistake, which wasn't completely my fault, but I had made a mistake. And it was a silly mistake that anybody else could have been taken into, but I think we discussed it anyway. And it was very much, I noticed that I was saying, what would my friends say to me if this had happened to them? And it was very much, well, it happens to everybody. It's a scam. You don't always know when that's happening. So be kind to yourself. You didn't ask for it to happen. So therefore it is just a genuine mistake, and move forward, but learn from it and move forward. So my compassionate self-talk is better, but it could be better again, I think. It could do with being improved on, put it that way.
Yeah, I think we all do this, don't we? We chastise ourselves. Instead of just allowing the cup of coffee that we've tipped over to be a cup of coffee that we've tipped over, we allow it to ruin our whole day because we were such an idiot to tip that cup of coffee over, and it spoiled the whole day. And that's because of the way we're talking to ourselves. I invited one client to consider the idea of putting a stone in her pocket for each time she was talking to herself in a way that she wouldn't talk to others, that wasn't compassionate, that wasn't allowing her to be human. And just the idea that she put a stone in her pocket, she realized that before she'd left the house in the morning, all her pockets would have been full.
Yeah, I can really relate to that actually. Yes. And I think mornings are a real time when we're not with it enough. So it's a habit that we ought to form so that it genuinely becomes part of our system. It's not something we have to work on.
Yeah. And that's a key. The key for me, a key for me when I talk to clients is to really unpick this idea of how we talk to ourselves affects how we appear to others.
Very much so.
It affects the way that we lead. It affects the way we lead ourselves. Therefore, it affects the way we go out into the world and lead our businesses, lead our teams. It affects everything. And yet it feels so innocuous. Like, doesn't everybody do it? Well, maybe we do, but it's not necessary. So a really key phrase for me has been mind your language. And I don't mean that in the way of don't swear. I mean it in the way of be kind, be gentle, be loving, be compassionate to self, and be honest. So if there is something that you're not showing up in a way that's helpful for you, then, just going, no, it doesn't matter, is not being honest because it matters. So when we're talking about minding your language, we're talking about showing up in a way that is leading ourselves forward in the direction we want to travel and isn't getting us caught up in these spirals of I don't know, letting ourselves off some things and being really angry about other things and getting the balance the wrong way around.
Yeah,
So
very, 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 very familiar what you're saying. Really, that's really resonating with me, Jane. Really.
yeah. And as I'm saying it, I can hear that same thing. I'm almost coaching myself in that conversation because I think we can all get stuck in that. And we can go, do you know what? It doesn't matter. I'll just and just to give a simple example, it might be I'll just have one more biscuit. It doesn't actually matter. And that thinking I mean, I don't like biscuits, so this isn't me, but that thinking might end up being you eat the whole packet.
Yes.
And then what happens is you've gone, oh, it doesn't matter. I'll just eat a biscuit. And then you get angry with yourself because you've eaten the whole packet. But at that point where you were going, just one more biscuit, that's the point to catch it.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean about minding your language and being honest. And I guess that links into that next question, which is that reliable are you to yourself? That's the integrity thing. I mean, how many of us recognize the idea that I'll go to the gym in the morning and the morning comes and I'll do it tomorrow? And there's this thing about manana, it's never there. It's always the next day. And that's not, we're not trusting ourselves, are we? We're going, I'll go to the gym. I don't really mean it. And this is going on in our heads at the same time. I'll go to the gym, but I won't, not really. It doesn't matter if I don't go. I can just go the next day. And there's this thing, isn't there? When we lose this integrity with ourselves, how can we expect others to act with integrity? And there's another way this can show up. And this was really true for me, which is saying yes to something. And from the minute you've said yes, you haven't got time, you don't really want to do it. There's a whole range of stuff. But because you don't want to let the person down that you've said yes to, you let yourself down.
Yeah, that is something that so many of us do, particularly if we're a people pleaser, which I was for a very long time.
Yeah,
It really it's really relatable that we all fit everything in, and actually we wouldn't give it the due time and service that it needs because we've just said yes without thinking about it.
that's the thing. And also, it's a really strong indicator of burnout. Our tendency to say yes when we really mean no. Our tendency to take on more than we can actually do. That's an action we take. It might come from a belief that we have no choice, but it's an action we take that means that we're overloaded and we're not getting things in balance. So that really isn't helpful to us. So this, how reliable are you to yourself, links really into slowing down. Because when we take our time to really explore, do I want to do this? Do I have the time to do this? Am I going to have to let something else go in order to do this? Am I going to communicate this? All of those things matter. And when we do that, we're more reliable to ourselves, because when we say yes, we mean yes. We don't mean yes and, oh no, that's an absolute nightmare, I don't really want to do it. Oh, because the minute that we're thinking negatively about something, we're creating these stress hormones in our system. So wouldn't it be beautiful to say yes and mean it? And know that. Wouldn't it be beautiful to say, I'm going to the gym in the morning, and get up and go to the gym and feel the amazing feelings that you get from doing that?
Yeah, and I also think actually one of the things is the first time you do that, it will then become a habit. It's doing that first time. If you can just get yourself to go that first time, you will then stick to your word after that because you will get the reward from doing that, and then you will want to do it. It's doing that first thing, isn't it? It's changing
Yeah.
that again, the compassion to yourself and the and just being integrity to yourself and keeping your own word by saying, I do want to do this. Let's do it.
And there's that thing, isn't there, as well, though, because we can let compassion to ourselves be, oh, I'm too tired today, so it's okay not to go. And yet we know that when we go, we'll have more energy,
Yeah.
and that we're not really too tired. It's we can create this too tired sensation. I have a client who, whenever something is difficult, their immediate bodily response is to feel exhausted.
Yeah.
And it took us a while, well, it took her a while to connect to the idea that the exhaustion wasn't real. It was generated by her thinking. And then when that thinking disappeared, the exhaustion disappeared too. And I see this in schools. I see this really strongly in schools, because we tell ourselves as we're coming to the end of a term how exhausted we are. And we constantly tell each other. And the more we tell each other that we're exhausted, the more exhausted that we are. And there's that experiment, and I got my client to do this in the school, which was to tell herself a different story and see how the last few weeks of term were. And she realized that she had more energy than she thought she had, because she told herself a different story. So the power of stories is incredible in our psyche and how we operate. And this reliability you're set to yourself, we can build it. We can build it in such simple ways. I've got a glass in here. When this is empty, I could tell myself, I'm going to take it in the kitchen and I'm going to put it in the dishwasher. And I could tell myself that I'll do that, and then I can do it straight away. So it's empty, I'm going to put it in the dishwasher. So I could literally go, that glass is empty, I'm going to put it in the dishwasher, get up and put it in the dishwasher. And then I could acknowledge that I've done that. And if I do that over and over again with little things, I can gradually test my ability to hold on to this idea that I'm going to do something over a period of time. So I will stack the dishwasher at the end of the day before I go to bed and put it on so that it's done. That might be something that I constantly do in the morning, but I can gradually build up to that idea. And so that's building that trust in yourselves. So another question is, and this is harder for us to see, because some of the habits that don't serve us, we don't know we've got. We don't realize they're habits. We think they're truths. We think that they're truths about ourselves. I could have one. I don't talk to other people first. They have to talk to me because I'm shy. I could have that story. I'm too shy for people to talk to me on my own, for me to talk to them first. And that could be a truth for me. I might see it as not a habit. I might see it as a truth. I might see it as I am shy, therefore I can't. So that belief that I have is stopping me taking action rather than, and that's the habit. It's a habitual belief. If I had a different belief that said I'm not shy, I can talk to people, I would just turn up and talk to them. It's not a thing about me, it's a belief I have about me. It's like those people who have a belief that they're lucky. They notice things. They go around the world thinking that they're lucky, so they see the £10 note that's on the floor that the person who believes they're unlucky walks straight over. You know, it's a belief. It's not true. So do you notice any habits that you have that don't serve you?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest ones is probably thinking that I'm not good enough for my peers. You know, when I'm presenting something or I'm networking, I think that's probably one of my beliefs is that I'm not as good as everybody else around me. So therefore, I work too hard to try and get into that conversation rather than being authentically me. So there's
Yeah,
probably something that goes on there, I think, definitely. And
yeah.
also probably self-belief as well. It's better than it was, but I still think there's a way to go with my self-belief in myself and my abilities. I think I'm still working on that as well. So I think they're both two clear beliefs at the moment that stick out for me that I'm becoming aware of more.
Yeah, it's great to see you on this call, actually, because, you know, the idea that you could show up on a call that was around leadership, you know, that would have been hellishly uncomfortable a little while back, wouldn't it?
Well, I did say to you as well, I sort of read the synopsis and thought, is this for me? Am I a leader? And I shouldn't have been questioning myself because I am a leader in my grief coaching. But
Yeah.
I didn't put the two together because of this belief I have that
Yeah.
goes alongside this. I'm not on an equal footing with my peers, basically.
Yeah. Leadership is an inside out job. It's not about what you do or a title. It's about who you are and how you show up. That's why this is a leadership system that starts and ends with you and how you go about things. You know, and when we have these habits that don't serve us, we get in our own way. And we can create really convincing systems and really convincing stories that go, this is why this is true. This is so true about me. And we get stuck in these stories. You know, it's why the question why. As a scientist, I love the question why. But as a coach, the question why isn't helpful. Because when I ask why, I'm offering the person an opportunity to go back into story. Well, here, you know, this is the thing about me. I'm a perfectionist. I can't do this. And, you know, I'm shy. So, and then I'm not a leader. You know, we go into story and they're all I ams. They're all beliefs and they're not true. So we get in our own way. And when I pose this question, it's not to go, are you getting in your own way? Do you think you are? I can tell you, we all get in our own way. It's what we do. It's like this interesting idea about reliability. You know, what's your self-integrity like? Integrity is this incredible thing. It like sits on the side of a mountain that has no top and has no bottom, and you're just constantly going up it. You know, you can always be more have more integrity. And there are always ways that you're getting in your own way. You can unpeel these layers off, but there's always other ways. And the one for me, the way I got in my own way was the fact that I was constantly in my head. I wasn't necessarily present. I thought I was. I thought I was present. I thought I was dealing with the here and now. As a head teacher in a specialist setting with social, emotional, mental health children, you know, there's a real need for presence, being present and being aware and being curious, because that's how you work with children and adults. And yet, so there was that level of presence when I was there. I was aware, I was in the moment. And there was another part of me that was going, okay, so keep this in mind. If I make this decision now, this is the long-term impact of this decision. You know, so I was not just making a decision in the moment, I was scanning for the future. And that's a really useful skill as a leader, to be able to do something in the now that you've already scanned for the impact in the future. But it's not very useful when you can't remember the holiday that you went on, because actually your brain was elsewhere for most of the time. And so you weren't present to connect and make memories. So, and sometimes we get stuck in you know, I talk about don't carry a suitcase of regrets. Let it go. Stuff happens, and just let it go. You know, don't hold on to the past. It doesn't tell you anything about you now. The past is history. It can give us some information. But just because that's what happened then doesn't mean that's what's going to happen in the future. And yet this is what our brain does. It goes, oh, I recognize this scenario. And it checks in its little bank of history of what happened last time. And it goes, oh, this is what happened last time. So that's what I need to do this time. But the problem is that that is all created from the beliefs we had. So this is why I talk about, we wear these belief binoculars and we go around. And when you do this to your eyes, you'll notice that there's a large amount of the surroundings that you cannot see. You're blocking out part of your worldview. When you take them off, much more is available. So when we wear these belief binoculars, everything that we experience in the world, every element of our experience is created through thought. You know, our eyes don't see. Our eyes create digital images, if you like, signals. They create electronic signals that our brain translates into an image. And in the same way, the way we see how we are and how we show up in the world is just through thought. We're perceiving the world through the thoughts that we believe explain how it exists. So if we believe that we aren't good enough, we'll see tons of evidence through these belief binoculars. We'll be going, I'm not good enough. Oh, over there is the evidence that I'm not good enough. And we won't see everything else, because there's the proof that that belief is right. And we keep pointing at that. So when we let go of those, all of a sudden, there's different truths about it. Anything is possible. The possibilities of how we can show up are endless.
I think belief binoculars are such a big thing, because I know when I first started doing my life coaching, the world just opened up for me completely. I saw things in a completely different light that actually I hadn't had in my vision prior to that. They'd always been there, but I hadn't seen them.
Mm.
And coming into that world with people that I could relate to and connect to, my world just became so much bigger and so much more interesting, because I was opening up to all these other things.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't been aware that I was wearing these belief binoculars and only seeing certain things.
And this really, really shines a light on this idea that a lot of us can get stuck on, which is we need control. So that thing about needing to know what's going to happen, needing to plan, needing to have so much detail. This is when we get lost in the future and we're not in the now. And we get so much stress over the future not applying itself to the future that we told it was going to be. You know, we don't let it happen. And we can, as a leader, we can get stuck in control too, this need for control. I need to control how people behave. I need to control how people show up. I need to control how this conversation in my coaching business goes, because this is the end I need to get to. And this is the control. The control thing there is a belief. It's a binocular that says, when I have this control, everything's okay. I feel safe. And the flip side of this is, when you take this control, everything's much narrower, because the only outcomes are the outcomes you can think of. And yet you're missing out on all of this expertise and experience in your coaching client. They know themselves better than you do. So you're missing, when you think you need control, you're missing out on their experience and expertise of themselves. And as a leader, if you think you need control, then you're missing out on harnessing the incredible wealth that comes from your team. So it's just, control is not a thing. We don't have it. It never exists. You know, there's a thing in teaching about you must control the behavior of your class. It's ridiculous. You can't control another human being. It doesn't work that way. You can connect. And so we've got this wrong. The word control needs to be changed to connect. As a coach, you need to connect to your clients and with your clients. As a leader, you need to connect to your team. As a teacher, you need to connect to your students. When you connect, you enable so much more. And this is where listening comes in. It's so funny observing people having conversations. I love it. Because what you notice is, quite often when you stand back and you observe it, yes, they're taking turns. It's beautiful. They all understand the rules that myself and other neurodivergents don't understand. This idea of you can't just butt in, you know, and you can't just take the conversation in a completely random phrase. We don't understand that necessarily. It doesn't work for us. However, we can teach ourselves it. But watching it is really interesting, because you have maybe 3 or 4 people, and they appear on the surface to be having a conversation, but when you really look, they're all eager to say what they have to say. And so they're not really following on from the other person's conversation and what they've said. It's like, no, listen to me. Look, I know, amazing. They might not be using those words, but that's what's happening. You know, and I notice this. And when I ask people, when you listen, are you listening? Or are you listening until you work out what you're going to say next, and then you're planning what you're going to say next? And everybody says, oh, I'm listening so that I know what I'm going to say next, and planning what I'm going to say. And then I asked this question of a client. I wonder what would happen if you let go of the idea of having to think of what you were going to say next. And they were very confused. But what would I say next? How do I know what I'm going to say if I don't think about what I'm going to say while I'm listening to the other person? So my invitation to others is to notice what you are doing when you are notably listening. Is your full attention on what is being communicated? Or is some of your attention elsewhere? Now, as an ADHD, my attention might be in about 1 million different places. You know, I might be playing a song in my head at the same time as thinking about what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do this evening, when I'm going to go to the gym or go swimming, and how am I going to answer this question? And how am I going to wait for them to finish, because it's taking such a long time for them to finish and I've already got what they're talking about. That might all be going on in my head. And if that's going on in my head, how much of my brain is listening? So my invitation is, explore your head. When you're listening, how much of you is listening? And then try listen more.
I think I learnt this the hard way, because I was very much planning and controlling sessions with clients and things. And you can't be present and listen deeply if your brain is planning what to say next and how you're going to respond. So it's actually, you can't do both. And it's it's actually being present. You will pick up and hear so much more from that person than when you're trying to plan what the next thing that's going to happen in that session is going to happen. And the client will get so much more out of that session, and we will learn so much more when we listen that much deeper, because you've got listening, like you said, but then you've got this really deep listening. And it's a skill we all have to learn, because 9 times out of 10, if you talk to somebody you know, they're not listening deeply to what you're actually saying. They're only surface listening, and it is a real skill to learn that deep listening, particularly to listen deeply to ourselves as well.
I love what you point to there.
Yeah.
The listening to ourselves too in this way. And to do that, we have to slow down, which brings us straight back to that, world. And actually, no, let's slow it down. Let's be more toddler.
Yes.
Because there's so much more to see when we slow it down. And there's this beauty about deep listening.
Yeah.
The experience of being listened to creates this amazing experience of connection. And as I pointed to, it's connection, not control, that we want. So, that is really important. And that's at the heart of where we're coming from with the leadership tree. This is in our roots. These are things that we explore. And most of the deep exploration and most of the transformation that then builds the new systems and daily actions comes in this exploration of, what are my beliefs about myself? What are the ways I go about life? What am I not seeing? Where am I getting in my own way? I love this image of the roots. There's a local national trust to us that has a garden, which is an Italian garden, and it has all of these roots everywhere as part of as architectural elements within the garden, and it's beautiful. And what we can see in these roots is they're not simple, and they're interconnected, and it's like the tree upside down. What you see on the surface is what you've got underground. These things going off in different directions and exploring in different places. And without each and every one of those doing its job, the tree isn't functioning. It grows more roots the taller it gets. The more leaves it gets, the more leaves it needs. The taller it gets, the stronger it needs its trunk to be. And it's constantly growing. And so this is not something we don't get our roots right, create our systems, and then carry on as normal forever. There's this real need. It's an iterative system. We need to constantly go back and go, what more can I see? How more intricate can I make my roots? Where else can I stretch them? Where else can I connect? And this is where the work is. This is really where the work is. Because each time we work on our roots and we build our systems, we go, oh, hang on a minute. Here's another thing that I'm noticing is a barrier, is getting in the way. Here's another insight I'm having. And from that, I saw a beautiful definition actually yesterday on Facebook around what insight is. And this was that thing about somebody had said, insight isn't useful without action. And yet insight is actually noticing something and taking action. That's insight itself. Insight, a transformation happens when the insight becomes action. Whereas if you just have the insight, it's just a nice thought to have, isn't it? Oh, that's okay. However, I'll carry on. You're not really having the insight because you're going, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, but that's not true about me. That's really what's happening when you're doing that. You're going, yeah, that's interesting, but I'm going to stick with what I already know. So a transformation happens when we don't just notice something about ourselves and then dismiss it. We notice it and go, wow, that releases me. That's incredible. That gives me new ways of seeing the world. That sets me free. And from that place, we set up our whole life differently. And that's what's coming in the roots. and here, one of the things that we constantly can say to ourselves is we don't have enough time. And yet my challenge to you there is that, of course you do. You're not going slow enough. Which sounds almost contraindicative, doesn't it? You're not going slow enough. But there's this incredible thing that happens when we slow down. We say yes to the things that we can and want to do. We don't add too much to our life. We then don't need, in inverted commas, to fill our life at the end of the day when we're knackered with doom scrolling and TV watching. We can use our time much more differently. And the key to using time differently is to slow down, so that we are building that capacity to only do what we want to do. And I mean that I don't mean want in terms of I only want to go out swimming. I only want to go on holiday. What I mean is that we're saying yes to the things that are possible. And then we've got time for joy. We've got time for hope. We've got time for wonder. And we're no longer stuck in the idea of this is how I should show up as a leader. This is how I should show up as a coach. This is how I should show up as a mother. This is how I should show up as a daughter. This is what I must do as a teacher. Those words don't mean anything. There's no shoulds, there's no musts. There's want and can. And there's no if onlys, and there's no if then when either. When I, then I. None of that exists, because what really matters is the now. And we're in the now and we're creating from there. So if we move through, I'm not going to explore this more, but essentially from our roots, we build the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the harvest, and we build those from the roots, because we build our daily actions, we build our systems from what exists within our roots. And we build them with an eye on what's the harvest we want. We don't plant the seeds of an orange tree if we want an apple tree. But also we can notice that if we want an apple tree, but all the seeds that we have and all the roots that we have and all the seedlings that we have are all orange trees, then perhaps we can see that we need to point in a slightly different direction and we grow our harvest. And so that's what the coaching does. That's where the coaching comes in. Where are your current challenges and sticking points? There's a real desire in this set of images that I've put the image of somebody working as so much bigger than all the others and almost on the top. And the image through the beach huts is about where are you wearing those belief binoculars? So there's so much less that you can see. And so the only thing you see is this small snippet of the world, when actually there's a much broader beach available to you. But all you can see is through those beach huts. Where is your time for family, for friends, for connection? Where is your time for fun and exercise? Are you at risk of burnout? Where are your current sticking points and challenges?
Yeah, balance. Balance in my life of work, setting up a new business, it's just taken over everything. My house has been neglected. I've been working evenings when I'd normally be relaxing, doing other things. My yoga's gone down to once a week rather than 3 times a week. So yeah, it's getting, yeah, current challenges is making everything a lot more balanced in my life. At the moment, work is all be all and end all.
Okay. How do you feel about the things like your yoga being second or third fiddle in your life now? And how does this make you feel about the challenges of running a new business?
That it's just all hard work and no play. And yet it's a passion, it's a life passion to take people through grief, but that's getting to the point where it's just the be all and end all. And that's means my enjoyment of life is limited And last night was a perfect indication of that. The boys were watching the football. I came down to watch the normal telly. They were watching football. And I thought, well, I may as well go and do some more work. Before my new business, I would have been, I could go and do something for myself. I might go and do some sewing, or I might go and read a book. But now my first thought is, I could do some more work. And actually, I was working at 7 o'clock that morning. So to then be working 7 o'clock that evening is not a correct thinking with balancing my life. And I'm aware of that. So it's one of the things I want to look at is really balancing my life again. And I've had this on and off through the last 2-3 years, that I will have bouts of really working hard and then realizing my balance is out of whack. And I would like that to stay the same constantly, that I'm not always working.
So there's this thing, isn't there? There's this idea of diary first. So, when I knew that the reason that I ended up in burnout was that my identity was wrapped up in, I'm a head teacher. I'm an executive leader. This is my life. And then all these other bits of my life are just elements of it. But really, my life is this. Yeah. Who am I? I'm a head teacher. No, that was wrong. Yeah. There's this idea that we wrap our identity, and we've also got this thing about we work hard in order to have money later, or to play hard. And again, it's wrong. And I love that you said balance, not work-life balance. I object to the idea of a seesaw with work on one side of it and life on the other, and having to balance them, because work is part of life. So it's about living life in balance. And what that balance is different for each of us. But I noticed you said, I chose work over sewing. I've reduced my yoga. And so I have this philosophy, and I've had it for a long time, which is diary first. So the things that are important to me, really important to me, that are part of who I am and a part of how I want to be in the world and a part of how I want to nourish myself, they go in my diary first. Grandparent daycare, Thursdays and Fridays, that's in my diary first.
Okay.
Swimming with my friend in the sea or in the lakes on Wednesday, that's important to me. That goes in my diary first. Right, when's the time available for me to do my work? Going to the swimming pool or the gym first thing in the morning, diary first. So my day, you want to talk to me before 10 o'clock? Nah, my day starts at 10 o'clock. Yeah. I've even put in my diary, lunch break, dog walk, stopping for evening meal, stopping at the end of the day. They're all in.
Right. Yeah.
So it's that idea that I'm important to me. And those things that are important to me are in there. And yes, there's this balance, isn't there, but I need the money.
I'm just going to say, that's the question that's going in my head is, but what about income? Because income is important too, in order to do those other things sometimes. So it's rectifying that balance again, isn't it? In the thought of, yes, I need to earn money, but I deserve to live as well. So it's, what is it?
And there's this
Work,
challenge.
not work to live, or whatever it is. That saying is correct, isn't it?
It is. And when you're working to live, you're often not living.
Yeah.
That's the challenge, I would say, when we don't let the work stop. And this is a real challenge for a lot of people in professions like education, medicine. We don't let the work stop. When we don't let the work stop, we're never present because we're actually thinking about work. So there's a habit, which is work is an ever present in my life. It's a habit.
I think that's a real danger with people who have started their own businesses
Of
from
course
home
it
as
is.
well.
Yeah. This is why it's so important.
Entrepreneurs are really at mercy of that.
I think entrepreneurs are significantly at mercy of it, is that desire to make money. And I noticed this with my son and his new business, and helping my daughter out, he works for my daughter as a handyman. His business supports my daughter's business, and they were opening a new practice. And then last week, before the new practice opened, My son didn't get to see his daughter because she was in bed by the time he got home every day.
Yeah.
You know, and I realized when his wife told me that on Friday evening that this was why he'd messed when I'd said, oh, we're in the cafe around the corner, basically the cafe where we were. I'd put some pictures up on our little WhatsApp group of her doing some craft in the cafe. He said, oh, you could come round and see me and the new practice afterwards. It's like, it'd be the first time he's seen his daughter that week.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's when the balance, and he was shattered, you know, and my daughter was shattered. The whole family were around there trying to get the practice up and running, the veterinary practice up and running and going for Monday. And the opening week has been brilliant. And that's lovely. But if that level of intensity continued, that wouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
But we can get caught in that. As entrepreneurs, we can get caught in, I need to get this done. I need to get that done. I need to get the other done. No, you don't. Get the systems in place. Get the behaviors in place. Get the attitude. Get your roots right. Get your daily actions and your systems set up, and things flow from that much more smoothly. It's when we try and do before we've got the systems. You know, it's when we set up a business and we go, I need to do all of this stuff, but we actually don't know quite what we want from the business. Yeah, that's when it all goes wrong.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Really helped.
Thank
Been
you so much.
battling that the last few days.
Yeah. And having the odd week where we're manic is fine.
But not all the
As
time.
long as we know it's the odd week and we return to that stability of life in balance. Yeah. Have I got it's like looking at that wheel of life and looking at all of the elements you've put in your wheel of life. Is that wheel off balance because some elements are taking over more of the time, and other elements that are equally important to you have a lot less time because of that? If when you look at that wheel of life, you need to go and get your wheels balanced because you're driving on a very sort of rickety road and your wheels are wobbling, you know you haven't got things in balance. And for each of us, that looks different.
Yeah, definitely.